globally significant ship. We swell with pride as we edge ahead. Passengers clamour at ports, hoping to buy a ticket. Would you like a tour? Yeah, we love to show people around the ship, especially on Saturdays. Chapter 2 is the captain. At the helm is the captain, Vince Challenor, or VC as he likes to be known. His cabin is 10 times larger than the average cabin size of the crew. Nobody knows why, but it's generally believed that without such a large cabin, it would be hard to recruit a captain of such calibre. The captain is seldom seen, but it's generally assumed that he must know how to steer the ship away from such perils as jagged rocks, hurricanes, icebergs, ash clouds and oil slicks. The captain is well aware of the locations of jagged rocks, but he has little understanding of the hurricanes, icebergs, ash clouds and oil slicks. These hazards loom on the horizon, but spotting them has never been part of his job. They weren't mentioned at all when he was recruited. In any case, the ship's steering system is designed to permit only small deviations from the overall direction of travel. Chapter 3, the crew. The crew's main job is to keep the passengers entertained during their 3-year cruise. This is a crew of talented individuals of renowned cleverness. There are many ologists, ossifiers, and even some Titians and Taurians among us. Many of the crew are women. They have been given much smaller cabins than the men. The black women on the crew tend to have the smallest cabins of all, and hardly any of the women have ever been invited to dine at the captain's table. Some of the crew have chosen to sleep on their own private yachts some distance away, rather than in a ship's cabin. Some of these yachts have beautiful names, such as Tranquil Valley, Distant City, or Picturesque View. Others have more practical names like Near a Good School or Has a Double Garage. Each morning and evening, these crew members travel between ship and yacht by personal helicopter. All day long, the foredeck is cluttered with helicopters, waiting to lift off with a blast of noise and foul air to carry their owners back to their distant yachts. Most of the crew feel very anxious about how long they'll be able to stay on the ship. They have seen many shipmates get stranded at ports along the way, or worse, thrown overboard. They strive to impress the captain. They help to repaint the ship so that it will gleam even brighter. They queue up to shovel coal into the furnace. They spend a lot of time writing books and papers and speeches and filling in forms, all about how clever they are. It is very, very important that each ship's crew knows exactly how clever it is overall and how this compares to the cleverness of every other ship's crew. Enormous efforts are made to devise objective measures such as the Fundamental Excellence Framework, FEF. Every few minutes on the aft deck of the ship, a plane takes off or lands, carrying ologists, ossifiers, Titians and Taurians from ship to ship to spread the news of their cleverness. From their lofty lookouts, the ship's captains should all be able to see that the sky is filled with soot and vapour trails. But they're too busy worrying about the jagged rocks and how to improve their ship's FEF rankings, and thus enlarge their cabins, to wonder what the consequences of all that pollution might be. Chapter 4, the passengers. At every port, the ship picks up passengers of great potential cleverness, which has been proven beyond doubt by regular lifelong testing. Though most of them are little more than children, they are forced to amass huge debts in order to secure their place on the gleaming ship. This debt and pressure to succeed has made many of them anxious and ill. Throughout the day and into the evenings, the passengers are crammed into windowless theatres, where they watch performances by some of the cleverest crew. At the end of the cruise, they must write down everything that they can remember about the cruise performances, in exchange for a certificate to prove that they have achieved cleverness. The passengers hope that the ship will deliver them to a desirable destination, where perhaps they will be able to afford to buy a small boat of their own, in which they can sail to the fabled land of retiree. It hasn't occurred to anybody that even if the passengers somehow manage to afford a small boat, they will have no idea how to power it, how to steer it, what to navigate by, what cargo is worth carrying, or how to fix a leak. These things were hardly mentioned in the cruise performances. Chapter 5, there are only 6, don't worry. Chapter 5, the animals. Deep in the ship's windowless hold, the stifling air is full of the cries of pigs, chickens and cows. They are crammed into the hold with no fresh air and no grass, which is not ideal, but it is necessary, because the passengers and crew enjoy the taste of their flesh and of their bodily secretions. A special crew lives in the darkness with these animals, feeding them huge quantities of grain, purchased from lands that were once great forests of astonishing diversity. Every day, they select the plumpest of these sentient animals, and many of their newborn offspring. They slash their throats and chop them into little bite-sized pieces. Should any of the passengers or crew wish to do so, they could lift one of the hatches on the lower deck and peer into the hold to see how the animals and their keepers are faring. However, most of them prefer not to know. It might spoil their dinner. Chapter 6, a new course. Some of the passengers and crew are asking awkward questions like, where are we going? And is that somewhere we really want to go? And what will we do when we get there? A few of them have heard of hurricanes, icebergs, ash clouds and oil slicks. They ask how the ship will avoid these perils and whether pollution from the ship might itself be making these hazards worse. It's time for the captain to mingle with the crew and the passengers and for them all to discuss and agree a new course together. Listen, let's stop trying to beat all the other ships and pay more attention to what our ship is spewing into the sea and into the sky. We could redesign the ship's steering system so that it can be turned around quickly to avoid the many dangers ahead. Perhaps we could hoist sails instead of shoveling coal into a furnace. Wouldn't it make sense for all the crew and passengers to have a ship's cabin, reducing the need for private yachts and helicopters? Why don't we convert all those runways and helipads into vegetable gardens so that we can feed all the people aboard? Instead of having a hold full of miserable animals and costly feed, we could make room for things that we really need, like compassion, wisdom, health, and joy. What does Captain VC say to all this? He says, how are we going to top the theft rankings if you lot don't get back to work and stop dreaming? So which course are we going to choose? Will the story have a happy ending? Well, as they say in Extinction Rebellion, we are all crew. It's up to us.
Thank you, Emily. That was absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for doing that. And there's so many things to talk about there in terms of comparing with the other ships and all the benchmarking we don't have to do, for example. So solve the stuff survey, right? And also the fact that, of course, that some of the crew and the passengers are getting out together to unionize, to organize, to set out a different vision. And also, senior management day, right? Also, these unionized crew members and passengers had the goal to appoint a female leader. So that's now what we're going to switch to. That didn't go down so well with the current captain's table. So we have a Sunil somewhere around who could come this way soon. There he is. Good. Right. Who's going to talk to us a little bit about that and give us an update on what's happened to Julie's case.
Okay, we had an email from Paul Boosted yesterday, and it's very disappointing. The management is playing hardball. Yesterday was the deadline. Yesterday was the deadline for us to say to the Employment Tribunal whether we are going ahead or not. And Julie and I filled in the form yesterday to say we are going ahead because the management is refusing to resolve Julie's case. And I want to give you some details of what's been going on because people have been asking me. This case has been going on for 5 months now. We first spoke to HR on 15th of September. We said to HR, Julie is being managed, our branch president is being managed by a head of department who has had 3 bullying cases brought against him by UCU. 14 members of staff testified against the head of department. 2 female academics had settlement agreements. The same head of department is managing Julie, and we said we can't have this. This is conflict of interest. The discussion started 15th of September. We proposed a solution. We said change the line manager. They said no. Julie was signed off sick. We went to occupational health. Occupational health assessment said change the line manager. HR, the bastards, went back to occupational health to ask them to change the recommendation. That's what we are up against. People have asked me what kind of detriment was Julie facing. All sorts of issues. Flexible working was being ignored. Issues with being given below grade work. Issues with the research league. Issues with sabbatical forms jumping through the hoops. Daily bullying, daily harassment. And management refused to deal with it. So anyway, the first solution, they said no, we're not going to change the line manager. We went back. We proposed another solution week before last to Steve Bradley, the VC, and Paul Boosted. We said, I'll just wait for the bus to go. We proposed another solution. We said if you're not willing to change the line manager, this was week before last, on Thursday, let's have a buffer. Let's have someone else in between. A deputy head of department who exists. Someone else who Julie can go and talk to about her day-to-day issues. It was our shared understanding with the VC that this solution would work. We didn't hear back. The understanding was this would be resolved before strike begins. We didn't hear anything back. Then on Friday, last week, I got a call from Paul Boosted. He said this solution is also not going to work. So they went back for the 3rd time. So they were refusing even to put a sort of a mediation, a person in between the head of department who is a bullying Julie. They said we have another solution. And guess what that solution is? Rather than deal with the bully, they said Julie can go on extended leave for 1.5 years till that bully is in place. So garden leave for the victim rather than deal with the bully. That's the solution they came up with. This was on Friday. I'll wait for the buses to go past. So rather than deal with the bully, they are asking the victim to go on garden leave, willing to pay for a year and a half rather than address the oppressor. We said, okay, we'll think about that. This was last Friday. Said, put things in writing and we will deal with this issue. What came back in writing was a gagging clause. They said, we will give Julie that extended leave for a year and a half. We will not deal with the bully, but you will not talk about this. And on top of it, sorry?
Let's make it famous.
Yes. On top of it, they said the union, the local branch, will not campaign against bullying. So not just gagging Julie, gagging the whole branch. And I have this in writing from Paul Boosted, with the Vice Chancellor copied in, with Nicola Owen, Sharon Hutley, senior managers copied in, saying you will not have a public campaign against bullying.
Oh, yes, they will. Yes, they will.
So are we going to be gagged?
Bullying. No. No bullying.
No bullying.
No bullying. No bullying. No bullying. No bullying. No bullying.
There is no way we are going to accept this kind of a resolution. There is no way the union is going to be gagged. There is no way that we'll let bullies bully our comrades, bully our branch president and get away with it. This institution has been getting away with bullying for years. We have been trying to fight this. We'll continue to fight this. We'll stand up to them and we'll see them in court on Friday.